Hello, everyone. I'm Bernadette Leal with Sembradores de Luz. And today we are so excited to be here talking about this very important topic in the family, that is the place of the elderly in our family. And before we start, just talking a little bit what Sembradores de Luz is. It's a team of volunteers all over the country. And our goal is to support family, children, teenagers, Spiritist educators in different subjects, spiritual, moral, or any other educational. So in our website, sembradoresluz.org, we have a lot of articles, resources, videos, all free because we are 100% virtual to support you. And also look at us, look up in YouTube. We have several videos, and part of this is our lives. Today is our last one, and we feel so grateful. So let's start by bringing our guests today. We have Sílvia, Gibbons, and Wéber. They've been here with us before. And if you haven't had a chance to watch their previous lives, just go on YouTube and you will find we talk about several aspects of life, of family, start to since birth to today, aging. So let's you introduce yourselves a little bit. Sílvia, tell us a little bit about you, where you are, and about you, things you do. We are curious.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm here in London, and it's 6 o'clock in the evening now, but still day, light, it's still day. A twilight takes a long time. And my name is Sílvia Gibbons. I've been in the Spiritist movement now for 40 years, I think, or so. So I work here in different groups. I organize a group myself, which is online at the moment, with the 𝗔𝘂𝗴𝘂𝘀𝘁 Spiritist Society. We have a group of study, and I help out in other groups. I was a member of the British Union Spiritist Society, was a secretary, and then I was a treasurer. And now I'm doing some work with 𝗔𝘂𝗴𝘂𝘀𝘁, with the group of studies, different groups of studies of 𝗔𝘂𝗴𝘂𝘀𝘁. I'm doing some of translation of the work, so we're here and doing some work with Sembradores as well whenever I can. So it's really nice to be here with you, Bernadette, and it's really nice to know you, Wéber, because I've seen your name before, but I had never actually met you. So it's nice to be with you in this, in this journey today. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon to you.
Likewise, the pleasure is all mine.
So, Wéber?
I can introduce myself very briefly. I was one of those people lucky enough to come from a Spiritist family. My grandfather was a Spiritist. My father and my mom were Spiritists. So I was born and raised in a family like that, which, for me, I'm always very grateful for that, because I know everyone has a different path how to get into Spiritism. But the reality is, once you get there, just make the most out of it. And those are the things we're going to discuss a little bit today. Bernadette and I, we know each other for a long time. I used to live in San Diego, where she's at. I used to be part of a spirit center there for a very long time, and left there, came to Orlando. I'm currently in Orlando, Florida. And here, Sílvia, it's 1 p.m., 1:04. And currently, I'm the current president of Plenitude Spirit Society. And we have we do quite a bit of things here, so it's a very large center, and very happy to be here with you guys and contribute as much as I can to the movement.
All right. Thank you so much. So, are you ready to start? And I'm going to start with Sylvia and Wéber afterwards. You can just add a little bit. So, for
Sure.
you that you are at home or wherever you are listening, we have about 4 questions in that topic on that topic and just to guide our conversation, but this is not a lecture. This is just a chat. We will talk about it. Feel free to send some questions and share this, afterwards. So the first one, in talking about the elderly, how does modern society view the elderly within the family? And how can aging become an opportunity for love, respect, and mutual learning rather than a burden? Because, I've been through this in my families and friends, and I go, oh, it's a burden. How? How do we do this so it's not a burden?
Well, this is a very interesting uh, theme that we are talking today, and I find extremely important because it is actually now a bit of a problem. You know, I think we come from a tradition. I mean, all of us, come from Brazil. And I can remember that, grandparents, if something happened, they would come and live with the family. Someone would go and live, with the grandparents and would take care of them. And it was all part of life. You know, but I find that nowadays, in modern society, here where I live in England, and many other places as well, I don't know, somehow we lost that tradition that came with us from many, many, many centuries, that the elderly, they had experience of life, they had gone through many, many things, they had things to teach us. And we used to see the elderly as teachers, as guides, in many, many traditions. You go to the African tradition, anywhere, any part of the world, we always saw, the
Mm-hmm.
elderly used to be respected and, would give advice, and we always saw them with respect. And I think nowadays, quite a lot of this has been diluted. There has been a big change in our society, especially in the last few years. And somehow we start seeing the people who gave us life, who helped us, as burden, which is quite sad, the elderly now are becoming very isolated, and with the difficulties of life, and everybody seems to be so busy now, working so many hours and doing so many things. We don't seem to have time for those who are not working. And I think also the society, we see value only when you are contributing towards the economy of the country or the society. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can be extremely, uh, very intellectual and someone who did amazing work, but once they stop work, they retire. Somehow it seems that they don't have the same value that they have, and they had still all the knowledge that they had before, you know. And I think that this question I found was very interesting to look at it, because um, I think because of this change, and children also, I personally see this one of the consequences. Before, we tended to live closer to the family,
Mm-hmm.
or easy reach, even if you have to travel 1, 2, 3 hours, but usually we're together. Nowadays, I mean, almost everyone I know who have children, I have a friend, she's got 4 children, and there are 4 children living in 4 different countries. So she has to travel halfway to the world to see her children, which is crazy because, when the children were there with her. Now they're grown up, gone to university, they have their jobs, and they all live in different countries. And I think this is something for many, many people who have their children not living close by anymore. So it seems like almost the people who should be there are so far away, isn't it? And then we have caregivers at home, and we have all this, we have strangers. But also, I think elderly people now, they are not so old anymore. A lot of them, they have learned new the technology now. If they can be taught, some people pick up that. I see elderly people using their emails, their phones, and they are quite good at it. So some of them are learning. They have more access to pensions. The pensions now are better. Their investments. And they can make a life quite comfortable for themselves. They can meet other people, and they can join clubs, all sorts of things. But it's almost like a personal thing that they do it. But I think for the people who maybe, when you're healthy, and then you can do that. But if you get sick, if a person is start having mental problems, forgetting, dementia, or they live in rural areas, far away from things, difficult, after a certain age, you're not allowed to drive anymore, which makes people isolated. If they can't drive and go to places by themselves, they have to depend on other people. And I think for those people, or also people who live in
treat elderly as a logistical problem, meaning who's going to take care of them? Who's going to pay the bills? So then we take the human side out of it, and because we're so busy with whatever we're doing, we just look at it, okay, who's going to be responsible for that? So that's the biggest issue there, because we have to understand that it's part of their journey, like we're going to go through as well. Part of the reincarnation journey is that at some point, obviously, if you don't disincarnate before for whatever reason, if that wasn't your plan, exactly, you're going to get to that point as well. And there's one more thing that's very important. So as it brings in the Gospel according to Spiritism in the chapter 15, without charity, there's no salvation. There's no biggest charity that someone can do to another without expecting anything in return. So we don't have to see as an obligation. However, if we have to treat others as we want to be treated. So therefore, yes, we should take care of them or do everything we can to facilitate that. Because sometimes you're not able to do it yourself, because as you said, nowadays, people are living in different parts of the world. I know because I went through that with my parents. Living here in the United States, my parents in Brazil, right? But I was trying to be as present as I could and facilitate as much as I could, right? Because of that reason. So keep in mind that it's part of the journey. I think that's one thing. You need to respect that. And also at some point, be able to understand that we're doing because that's the right thing to do.
Right. I have so many friends in Brazil, and my sister too, that she's the one that took care of my parents till they passed, and others. And one thing that they tell me in Brazil, and it's not the same just in Brazil, it could be everywhere, right?
Sure.
The technology, in a way, it helps, but now it's becoming cold. One of the complaints that I hear from there is because of texting and WhatsApp, they check on me once a week or once or whatever. How are you doing? Are you okay? And now they're saying, and they don't come here to visit me. They don't come. They feel I'm doing my part. Do you need to go to the doctor? Are you okay? It's all about texting and messages, but they are missing the human contact. That is one of the comments that I hear. I wish my daughter would come here and see me. I'm glad that she checks on me on the phone, but now I barely see them. Some of them are even living closer, but they are so busy and they don't make the time and they feel lonely. So it's moderation, right?
Right. Yeah, we also have to consider that we know that in the law of cause and effect, a lot of times on those families, they be incarnating together for a reason. Not necessarily they all love each other, but it's necessary, right? To go through that, because that's where the charity comes. That's where the learning curve happens for the spirit while incarnated, right? So we cannot be, as we know, naive to think that all families are going to be all happy. No, we know that that's not how it works. However, we have to be responsible for our moral enhancement individually, and whatever we can do to assist, especially the elderly, because now they're in a fragile situation.
Yes.
Just like as a child, the same way.
Exactly. So since you were already mentioning about compassion and a little bit of quotes about the Spiritism and the Spiritist books, in the light of Spiritism, what does it truly mean to honor our parents? How does filial piety go beyond moral or legal obligation?
Well, I think, first of all, it's in the Ten Commandments, right? Honor thy father and thy mother. Yeah. And it's also in Spiritism, because a lot of people think that there's no like Old Testament passages in the Spiritism. Actually, there is. This passage of Exodus is in the Gospel according to Spiritism. So it talks about the Ten Commandments, right? So we need to honor them because we have to be grateful because they accepted us to be here in this incarnation. That's a lot of times people don't realize that in order for you to incarnate here, you need to get the approval of your parents. So at least we should be grateful for that, right? And and that's one of the way. Once you change that paradigm, now you start seeing like them as someone that's just like us, trying to better themselves, trying to improve, and we're going to try to assist as much as we can at the very end of their life. Because as I said before, at some point we're going to get to that point as well. I think it's just to understand that we all reincarnate here with a purpose, right? And sometimes we also have to consider that elderly, once you get to that age, you're going to start going through a lot of stuff, So you're going to start like dealing with disease, loss of cognition. You're going to start going through a lot of different things. And that's when we need to realize that perhaps is part of their reincarnation project. But we have to try to do whatever we can to minimize that. Okay?
Right.
So I know we lost you for a little bit there, Bernadette, but it's good.
And if that happens, don't worry, I come back. That's the beauty of doing things live. Sometimes connection.
It happens. Technology.
It happens, but you are all in good hands.
Yeah. And I just want to see if Sílvia, if she wants to complement anything. If Sílvia wants to complement anything, what I just said, I think it's, for me, it's understanding those things.
What do you think, Sílvia? Yes, what would you like to add?
Well, actually, in doing research and studying about this, it's of course it's in the Decalogue, in the Ten Commandments, and it's the commandment 4: love your father and mother.
Right.
Honor, not love. Honor your father and mother, so God, you live happy in the land that God will give you. And the interesting things, there are 9 verses in the Bibles, in the Old Testament, in Isaiah, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and in the New Testament, in the Acts of the Apostles, in Paul, Ephesians. There are 89 verses in the Bible about taking care of the elderly and honoring your father and mother. So I think it really, it feels like how important it is that, like in the Old Testament, many of the prophets and Moses, is in the Ten Commandments, as you're saying, Wéber, and how is in Ephesians, in Hebrews, and, in Paul, and that So it's an extremely important thing that to take care of fathers, of mothers. And, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we have a whole chapter 14, is all about honoring your father and mother.
That's
And
right.
I think one point that they make is that sometimes we use our parents. And I know lots of people who, the grandmother is going to take care of the grandchildren because I have to work. So sometimes you burden your parents when they are able to take care of your children or do things. And some people really mistreat their parents. I mean, we know that they give the least place for them to live, and they are not pleasant. Um, there are sometimes partners who more or less forced if you have a parent with you, they want them to go to homes and kind of like that. But one point that I thought was interesting in this chapter 14 of the Gospel according to Spiritism is that he says, that it's not only because they took care of us, but so to take care of our parents, to give them uh, material comfort, we also need to be thoughtful about them, to give love to them, because it's a payment of a sacred death. So
Hmm.
it's not like an obligation because they took care of you. And like
Sure.
you point you made, Weber, that we in the planning for reincarnation, which we desperately need for our spirit to progress, the two people actually accepted to
They
be a
took us in,
parent.
right? They took us in.
They took us in, they took care of us when we were
Right.
vulnerable, they helped us. And, we know there are sometimes, giving the reincarnation, there are difficult families, difficult parents. Not everyone is as good as they could be, but they gave us life. Even if
Sure.
they allowed us to come into the earth through them. So we have that. And he says, like in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, it says it's the only thing that pleases God.
Sure.
Because in being kind to your parents, in being thoughtful and loving towards them, and is gratitude, but it's a payment of a sacred death. And I think this is very, very important because the sacred death is our life, isn't it? It's the opportunity
Sure.
that our spirit is having to be able to be born on earth, to go through all the lessons that we need to go through for our spirit to progress and become enlightened. So, when you see this perspective that Spiritism explains so well, we see that, even though maybe sometimes parents are not that good, but we need to be grateful
They're
to them.
trying their
They gave
best,
us
right?
life.
Yeah, they're
They
trying
gave
their
us
best.
life.
Yeah. One
So
of the things,
it's
Sylvia, for
important, I think.
me, one of
Mm-hmm.
the things for me that for me, it makes me happy is that I lost both of my parents, right? They desincarnated, and that's they were supposed to go, right? And at the old age, so they did fine. But one of the things that I did that I always recommend people at the end of their lives, I thank them personally for everything that they've done for me. I was able to do that, and I'm very grateful that I did that,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes you don't have that chance, and then later on you regret. So I'm very grateful that I was able to have that insight, and I told them just the three of us, and right there and then I said, look, I know you guys did the best that you could, and then I was able to thank them. So
You're
I
lucky.
just
You
food
were
for thought.
lucky.
Food
You're
for thought
lucky to
for
be able to do
anybody
that.
that it's going, parents maybe in an old age, just food for thought. Because I I know for a fact, working with mediumship for many, many years, a couple decades, and a lot of times we don't prepare people to disincarnate. And one of the things we can do for our parents is that, so that they can go at ease, because on their mind they know it's like, hey, thank you for everything, it's all good, I'll handle from here on, thank you. So they
Right.
go without thinking that they're leaving anything pending behind. That's very important.
Yeah. And now that we know also, as we study, that we are eternal spirits, and if by any chance you didn't have a chance to say thank you, right,
Sure.
while they were alive, do it.
Things to say. Do it
Continue
now. Yes.
do it now.
That's
Yeah,
They feel
praise.
the presence,
Yeah,
the
pray for them.
energy.
Yeah.
Just say thank you, even if they're not good parents, which there is a question here that I'm just gonna throw because we already talking about. Let me see here. Uh how can you honor a neglect parent who is old now? It was very abusive.
Yeah.
How that it's old. I don't want to deal with my parents because they did horrible things to me. Now they are old. And you talk about compassion. So what now? And I have a few friends there in that situation. What do we do? What do
I
you
know
suggest? Let's
I know
talk.
people like that too, but I think it's just for charity, because we know it's not what they have done. We know that people make mistakes against us is because that's where they're at, or that's how they were, not necessarily who they are today. And they regret as well, right? So we're all subject to make mistakes. Is how we treat that, to have that indulgence towards another, as Jesus taught us, right? So understand that they sometimes try their best, or also understand because of the law of cause and effect, not family members, not necessarily we all love. Maybe in the past lives, things were very different. And now this is the readjustments. The thing at this point, what I tell people, say, look, you have to do because you know it's the right thing to do. You don't have to become their best friends. Treat with respect, honor them whenever you can, and just be charitable towards them. That's it. You have to do your part, and then they're gonna have to respond for their own actions, and I'm gonna have to respond for my own actions. Once you have that clear, then it's easier to deal with that. And I know it's hard to set aside the emotions, very hard. Right?
Yeah.
But if you think that way, then makes things a little bit easier to deal with. See what Sylvia thinks.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because as we've been talking, and you mentioned it as well, and Bernadette as well, we sometimes come with parents that they were our children in the past, you know? We were the parents, and we
Or
didn't
our
treat them
enemy.
very well.
Yeah.
Yes, or sometimes people who were enemies who come together, and I think that that's one of the things that Spiritism is so rich in understanding that, because we as Christians, we have lessons that we follow. Love your enemies, try to be good to everyone, and our parents, we have this extra because they gave us life. So if this, and I know that many people who will be listening to us are not Christians, and they don't, they have other religion, and it's fine. But I don't think every single religion, they always have this, that you have to take care of your parents, whatever. It's even people who don't have any religion, even don't believe in God. That's part of humanity, that you
Yeah.
take care of the elder, those who are weak and in need. So if we needed to forgive our enemies and to be good to those who hurt us, imagine, the parents they gave us life. We owe them. We have that sacred debt with them. But I think, and it's difficult because sometimes people who had a really difficult, but let's not be what they were to us. We have an option to show them that we can be kind, that at least we can be tolerant. If they were abusive, we don't know. Sometimes people had very abusive parents. They don't know
Yeah.
any better, isn't it? And so we need to, even if they were deliberate abusive, and some people can be really abusive, but let's try to understand and not behave the same way that they
Right.
behave towards us. Let us help them to understand a different way, because we are learning. And as you know, as we've been saying, all these connections, they don't disappear with the death of the body. It continues in the spiritual world, and it continues in next lives. So if we treat them very bad, they probably are going to be our parents again, or we're going to be connected. So if we do things in a better way, we free ourselves. If for us an old enemy, we made a friend. And I think that's important, because just one point very quickly, sometimes we don't value. I didn't have my father. My father died when I was 5 years old, so I had a mother who was a father and a mother. And you were
Right.
saying something about Wéber, you were saying about being grateful. I don't think I ever said to my mother, "Oh, I was grateful," but I try to do things for her that showed her that I was.
Intrinsically, yeah, she knew that, right? Because that's
Well,
in,
I tried
in your
to put
actions.
through anyway the way I treated her. But it's interesting because sometimes when we are children, we don't realize many things, only when you grow older. And I remember, I was talking to a friend not long ago, actually, this was, and I was saying, I always came home from school and I had my, food was ready. Before I went to school, I had my lunch. My mother used to make lunch really early, so I could have lunch before going to school, because I used to go to school in the afternoon. My clothes were always clean.
You had a roof over
And,
your head.
and I never said thank you to my mom,
Yeah.
you know, that she organized all that. So I think, it's good to, as you said, how important you feel that you said thank you
Yeah,
to
one
them,
thing, Bernadette, that question is important as well. I always recommend people. We talk here about chapter 15, 14. Let's talk about chapter 12. That is the Sermon of the Mountain. Love thy enemy. And over there, when you go there, it explains really well that type of love, compassion that you should have for your enemies, current and past, right? So, because in the past they did what they did, and now we came on this incarnation to readjust that path for both spirits. We need to do our part. We're not saying to love them as you love, someone that you truly love, but to understand that they made mistakes, and that's how they were, not necessarily who they are today, and not necessarily who they're gonna become. So having that kind of point of view, it's easier to deal with it, because you have to understand that you're only responsible for your own actions. You're
Correct.
not responsible for someone else's action, right?
Correct.
But what I do with that action, someone does something against us as a child. I know it's easier to say than go through it, but you're only responsible for how you're going to respond to that. And if you respond to them with, not necessarily to love them really, passionately, no, not like that. To understand you're dealing with someone sick, a spirit that is sick, sometimes mentally and as a spirit. Because people that abuse children, that's what they are, right?
Mhm.
And nowadays, because of modern psychology, and we have a better understanding of that. In the past, that was hard. And you got to remember, our grandparents, parents, they didn't have the tools that we have today. We have knowledge today in our hands. So let's use it.
Yeah. And we can ask for help.
That's right. There's a lot of help.
So we have another question here for Adriana Cruz. Adriana is asking, what can we say to somebody whose parent has to be in a nursing home because the grown-up child, has to go to work financially, doesn't have the time to take care of the parent that is in need, and this person might be feeling guilty? What can we say in that situation? We can start with Wéber or then Sílvia.
Yeah, I think it's if because logistically speaking, sometimes it doesn't work to be with the kids or the children at that point in time. But more important, it should be present. Even they can be in a nursing home, but if we make the time to try to visit them as much as we can. Try to communicate with them through technology today. You can see them on your phone, a video call, and just try to be there and let them know what's happening with you. Say, look, I'm sorry, I cannot take you in because sometimes they need medical assistance. It's not just, and you cannot provide that, right? So then they need to be in a nursing home for a reason, right? And then you just need to assure them that no matter what, you still love them. That has to be very clear to them, because the worst feeling for a spirit that is about to pass, to disincarnate, is to have the feeling they were neglected.
Yes.
That your children, because they're going to feel guilty. And there are a couple feelings that you have to be very careful when you disincarnate. If you have fear and guilty, those two feelings, they work against us in the spiritual world. So the more that we are in balance and have the acceptance of what happened, it's easier. That's how we're gonna wake up in the spiritual world, because a lot of times we don't prepare for that. To me, when a a long time ago, when I first started doing lectures, that wasn't the topics I always focused on it, because I realized working in with spiritism, dealing with mediums and talking to spirits, I realized how unprepared we were to die. And it's only certain things for all of us. We're all going to go through it, right? So make sure that even though if they're like in a nursing home, you cannot be there for different reasons, right? Just make sure that you realize that you're there, not physically, but you love them, and spiritually you're there. Assure them that you care about them, and no matter what, you guys are going to reconnect again, because we know it's not a goodbye, it's a see you later, if there is really a connection there, right? I think if we do that, I think they'll feel a lot better, because they're going to feel like, okay, I can deal with this.
But if you abandon, Sílvia, in this case, maybe you just put there and now I don't have that problem anymore, thinking it's over, I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I just abandon and neglect. Sílvia, what are the consequences? Are there any spiritual consequences of that?
Yes, I mean that's exactly the thing. We can never say it's not a problem anymore. Like Wéber was saying, sometimes, because nowadays as well, houses are not as big as they used to be. We live in quite small places now, small flats and things. And, you have to work, or you have different obligations, whatever. And sometimes the person is not well, and we are not able to take care of them because medically they need more assistance. And I think that's the point that Wéber made was really very important, because it's not because they have to be there, there must be reason, but we need to connect, to be, so they know that we are with them, and it's, like you said as well, technology is so good now, because I think sometimes, and one point that I think is very important is what we are teaching our children.
Yes.
Sure.
Because if we completely ignore our parents, we are teaching our children
to do the same with us.
Don't need to care at all about us.
Yeah.
And and sometimes when you're young and you're busy and you have to work and you have this obligation and that and a lot of things as well, we create problems for ourselves. We're teaching our children that, well, when you old, do the same thing as you did to my grandma. Just send her to a home and forget that she exists. And I think that's one of the things that parents sometimes don't stop to think, because they are teaching their children how to take care of them when their time comes, and this is very important, because I think, as we said before, the consequences of not taking care of the parents is going to create a lot of guilt in us.
Yes.
I could have done better. You
The
know, how
law of
many
cause and
times, even
effect,
as
right?
I could have called, why didn't I call? You know, so many things sometimes happens. You're there and everything's fine, and then there's bad news. They very ill, or you know, they pass away, and then you don't have the opportunity to say how much you love them, how much you care for them. And this is very, very important, I think, because it's for them to know that you have this connection, because giving your life, I think, is the greatest thing that a human being can do to another. Given, you know, that our eternal spirit needs these journeys into, you know, to reincarnate, to learn all the lessons that we need. So we needed to be grateful and to treat them well. And even if they have to be in home, so, you know, just remember them, be kind, remember their birthdays. You know, it's a silly thing, but there were two things that my mother used to be very upset if we forget, which thankfully I never did, was her birthday and Mother's Day. You know, if you didn't remember her, to send her a little card, and she didn't want present or anything, just a phone call or a card, you know, happy Mother's Day, and made her day. She was so happy, you know. And sometimes are the little things that makes the connection between, you know, even if they were enemies in the past, we can be friends, and that connection of love, I think, is the little things. It's a phone call, or thinking of you, sending your thought, how are you? You know, do you need me? Do you need something? Because some
Yeah.
people put their parents in homes and they completely forget about them. I know this because a cousin of mine, actually, she's a kind of nurse. She works in this take care of elderly people. She works in a home, and and she's so loving. You know, she's very, very loving, and so she has all these people who don't ever see their parents for months on end. And, you know, a silly thing, really. But this lady, she really liked my cousin, because, I mean, they there with them all the day, you know, taking care of them and everything. And
Yeah.
so her family comes every now and then, you know, like once in a blue moon, literally, and brings all these old biscuits, you know, old out of date biscuits for the mother.
Which is
And she keeps it to give it to my cousin, because,
yeah.
you know, he wants to give her a present. And she thought, how can they do that to their own parents? So she throws everything away. She goes to the supermarket and buy new biscuits for this elderly lady, you know. And I mean, it's a silly story, but sometimes you can see how sometimes people think. I don't think they went to the market and bought something out of date. I think they bought it thinking of, next time I go and see mom, I'll take it with them. And they stay so long not visiting that by the time they come, the thing's out of date. I think that's probably what happens. And if we forget our parents, we are teaching our children to forget us. And our time will come, you know, like night follows day. We know that the day that we get elderly, or, you know, we're going to need someone to take care of us, then expect, usually it's your children. Um, you know, and also there is a lot of spiritual consequences, feeling
Right.
guilty. And when we could make friends, you know, we continue being an enemy. So
I think,
it's
Sylvia,
nice.
there are two laws. If we all knew that clearly as a civilization, we'll be a lot more advanced. That is the law of cause and effect. Because if we neglect them, if you think that treat them as our enemies, guess what? The second law is going to come in place, which is the law of reincarnation. Because cause and effect and reincarnation, they walk side by side holding hands. That's how it works, you know. And a lot of times, as we're very immature spiritually, so we don't realize that. So that's when we made those mistakes, and we just abandon them, like, oh no, they did that to me when I was a child. I understand, but that's who they were, and that's how they had to give. That doesn't mean you have to be the same. Don't repeat the same mistake, because guess what? if that stays like that, you guys gonna have to come back again together.
Same people. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Yes.
funny because I always say that. I say, look, if we only apply those two rules, our plan will be a lot better. And you know what's the funny thing? Those two rules have been here since the beginning. Because if you go to the most ancient religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, in Hinduism, that is what the two laws that they have and they respect as today as well. Law of cause and effect, law of reincarnation. If we understand that, we're gonna see and treat others differently and see the world differently. And I think that's the part sometimes that we're missing there.
Yes. Great thoughts, great comments, and food for thought. So it's coming to an end. And there is one last question. Let me give an example. I am very close to my 60s now. And even though I look very young, don't we all? Today we say, we are 10 years younger.
Right.
But my body feels it, okay? That I don't have that much energy like before. So, for example, I'm hanging out with my daughter, and in the past it was like, come on, walk fast. No, it's time to go. Oh,
right.
What are you doing now? And I'm like, okay, I'm tired now. I need to have my nap. Okay,
right.
What do you want? Want me to do this? It's too much for me. I need to eat at a certain time.
No, he's gone.
So with our body. So when we are taking care of our elderly, many like me, like say other us, we have our habits. We have a ritual, like in a sense. Right. I'm used to wake up at 5 because usually the older you maybe you don't sleep 8 hours anymore. You sleep less hours or more often. So you have their parent, right? That likes to wake up at this hour, have the coffee, watch the TV for 30 minutes, and go for a walk, and they have it, or whatever it is that they need to process, because they become like a children. And it's important to be patient and loving towards this new person that it's becoming with the new habits, the new needs. What can you tell to people out there the importance of respecting the elderly needs, habits, schedule what they need right now? What would you say, Wéber, and then Sílvia?
Sure. I think is understanding that they are on their last phase of their incarnation, and try to bring them into the reality of the family, and try to be as fair and just with them that we can. Understand that we're a creature of habits. Now, imagine someone that have certain habits for a very, very long time, decades. You're not going to change that at the very end of their lives, right? Understand that, and it's okay. You're just going to have to deal with it. If you understand, it's easier. The problem is when we don't accept and refuse to accept, and then you become like you have grudging against that, right? It has nothing to do with that. And understand that's how they are brought up. Understand what their skills that they learn through their lives, right? So different culture that we currently have, and understand also that the newer generation is always trying to improve so we can make a better world, right? So in theory, if we think about it, our generation should be more advanced than our parents.
Yes.
Our children are supposed to be more advanced than we are, and so on and so forth. That's how we're going to evolve as a planet and as a person. And I think that the thing that's got to be very important and understand their limitations and see that as an opportunity for personal growth, because we're going to have to respond according to our actions, right? So if I was able to respect them and be able to try to make it as easy as possible for them, right? Because
Sorry, I don't understand.
you're not going to be with them for a long time, right? And then you'll be able to settle in your mind, and also be able to handle when it becomes your turn. And if you teach, as Sílvia pointed out, because we have to live by example. We're models for our kids. A lot of people don't realize that. Kids, they learn by modeling, as it's taught in psychology. And they're going to look at us. And then later on, if we neglect our parents, they're going to do the same to us. And if we accept them and integrate them in our family, they're going to do the same. And that's what we should try to do. Do things that if they can participate, yeah, do that with them. Because once they live here, on their mind, they're going to be settled. They didn't leave anything behind. We tried our best. I think that's the point we should work on it.
Sílvia, you got a couple of minutes to add before we close.
No, I just, from what you're asking, it's just to remember the golden rule that, especially we have as Christians, do unto others as we would wish they did to us, right? So if we think that, then you treat other people well. And we have the extras, we talked about before, for being our parents. So treat people well with decency, because I think, Wéber mentioned a lot about the end of life. I think, in whatever age we are, but most especially, I think, when you're old and you're coming close towards, the end of an incarnation, I think what people need to feel is that they are valued, that they are respected, that
Yes.
they meant something. There is, just because they can't work, be part of the economy. And I think there is a lot of, society that we need to be aware of that, because if you retire, oh, you retired now. The question, are you retired now? It's like there's something wrong with you when, you get so busy as well when you retire. And I think it's to make people feel, whether they're parents or other people or friends, they feel valued. They feel that they are respected, they are loved. I think that's all we can do to the elderly and to our children as well. It's the same thing, because if we educate them with respect to them and feel that they are valued, that they are seen, you see them, not just, oh, he's a child, he doesn't understand, oh, he's old, he's like a child now, no point in talking to them. No, talk to them. It's sometimes it's interesting. We used to go to healing things in a hospital, and the hospital where people had problems, like AVC and all that kind of thing. And I remember once there was this lady, and she was there with her sister, and I was talking to this lady, and her sister said, oh, she doesn't speak anymore, whatever. But I talked to her. I was looking at her and I was talking to her, and whatever I was saying, because I talked too much, I was talking things, and do you like the music, whatever it was, we used to sing for them. And then she kept, she went to, she kept nodding at me. And then her sister said, it's interesting. She seems to be understanding you.
Well, her spirit's there.
I thought, I'm sure she's understanding me.
Yeah.
The fact that she had a problem, that she cannot speak anymore, does not mean that she doesn't, and I could see that afterwards. I mean, I didn't do it, I just thought I was talking to her. I'm not going to talk to somebody next to her, but you could see her face that, actually there was someone who,
you were talking to her spirit. Yeah, that's she was there.
No, we're talking not with her spirit. I mean, we're talking to her. She could hear, she could understand, she could not speak, but she knew what were being said to her. And she's, I think and I think with everyone, even us, we like to be seen. We like to that people see who we really are, rather than judging us before they say anything, and to feel valued and to feel that you are cared for. And I think that that's all we can do to, whether the person is elderly or a child. And I think it's very important for us to educate our children, feeling valued. They make a
Sure.
mistake, try better next time, because then, when they grow old, they will know how to take care of the parents, and they pass it on. So I think the golden rule, do unto others as you would want them to do to you, which is one of the oldest thing in the planet, is in every single religion and philosophy, even thousands of centuries before Christ came into earth. So
And I think you got to
yeah,
get used to elderly, because we, as a society, we're growing older, and we're going to be around with technology, with
yeah,
medicine. So it's only going to improve. So don't think that people, because not too long ago, people get to their 60s, like Bernadette was saying here, we're considered older, right?
You're right.
Now, yeah, I know people, they're very active, and like close to their 90s, and even past
yes.
90s. You know what? So
Yes.
they're gonna stay around. So get used to it, and technology is gonna help with
Right.
that.
And
And
you see people, like those. I mean, I grew up with them, like the Beatles, the Stones, and everything, and they still making records. They still
Right?
doing things. They still doing gigs, and they are in their 80s already. And I think we are living longer and
Sure.
stronger,
right.
and also with our minds, because I think one of the things as well that I always found fascinating, because I always like talking to elderly people. I had lots of old people that were friends. I remember this friend Ada. She was a rain during the war, and she used to work in all this find aeroplanes, and you talk. She was so quiet, She sat on the and she had all this experience, that during the war she was there, just trying, looking at the planes. Is it who's coming in, who's going out, and things. And the other friends, well, her husband, he used to tell me about because he was a teenager during the war, and the things they lived through, how he could read. He lived in London, and he could read at night with the light of the fires that was in East London, and so
Right.
many memories. Is so rich, because I think that's one of the things we used to have, the tradition that the old people tell you stories
Right.
and you would pass on, isn't it? So quite a lot of myths and things that we know was passed on by their experience, their what they saw. And I think when we dismiss that, we miss a great part of our humanity, I
Sure.
find.
Yeah. So
So
it's funny. We have one meeting now. Sylvia, I went to see the Fix. You know the band The Fix? It's the British
oh
band.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
just went to see their concert because I love the 80s. And they're all older and dancing and playing the drums like crazy, and I've been going to see bands, and that's it, It's like our spirit's young. But anyways, so it's coming to an end, our amazing uh, live with this important topic. Please share with others. And we want to thank everybody that participate with us, because this is the last live in this series about the family and the home, with very important topics. We probably be working on the next theme. So thank you, Sylvia, for participating with us. Thank you, Wéber, and
You're welcome.
thank you. We want to thank everyone that joined us in this journey. It wouldn't be possible without you, without your insights, without your talk, inspiring people. And thank you for watching. And we will be seeing you again. Right. Thank you,
yeah.
guys. Let's say
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you for having me. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
wonderful.
And
Take
wait there
care.
for
Until
us
the
to
next
chat a little
one.
bit. Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Done.